Thank you for your time today. Could you start by introducing yourself?
Okay, my name is Gillespie, and I teach environmental science at Spain Park High School.
Okay. Well, our first question is, what are the biggest sources of water pollution?
Well, there's a lot of different kinds of water pollution, and they come from a lot of different sources, so it depends on which one you're interested in. We've talked about plastic and trash, and that mostly is washing in from places where people have not disposed of it properly so that it could be put into a landfill. China is a big source of plastic, but then so are pretty much all countries of the world. There are other water pollutants that come from industry, such as chemicals or petroleum. There are a lot of water pollutants that come from agriculture that wash off from fields of crops that would include pesticides and fertilizers. And then there are pathogens that can come from highly concentrated, populated areas where the water gets contaminated, and those would be coming from people mostly. But they could come from animals, like from, for example, a feedlot where cows are being raised could produce E. coli, which could wash into water, could be applied to crops, and then people could get sick from that kind of water pollution. And then one big thing that a lot of people don't think about is carbon dioxide, which actually is produced by the burning of fossil fuels. And that can, because it's increasing in the atmosphere, can go into oceans as the balance becomes disrupted, increases the problems in the ocean, including like ocean acidification.
Next, why is water pollution such a big deal?
Well, it affects a lot of things because it affects people and it affects living things. So it can make people sick, it can make animals sick through spreading of pathogens. There are places in the world where people don't have access to clean water. Maybe it's contaminated with chemicals or some kind of toxin. And then it can also result in a process called eutrophication, where fertilizers cause excess algae growth, and then loss of oxygen in the water can result in fish kills. So there's a lot of different reasons that water pollution is a big deal. Another thing is the plastic has been in the news a lot, and that's something that can be consumed by animals, ocean animals. There are cases where they've opened up dead animals and found huge amounts of plastic in their gut, and that's displacing the food that they would eat and can kill animals. So it's a big deal in a lot of different ways, a lot of different areas.
How does pollution in water sources affect wildlife?
Well, I've mentioned a couple already. We know that plastic bags, for example, in the ocean look like jellyfish, and so turtles will eat them, consume the plastic bags. Things like whales, birds eat things that look like food, but they end up just stopping their digestive system from working. So that's one way. Oil pollution, oil slicks can affect wildlife. They can cause the animals to die from hypothermia. They can die from the toxins that affect their feathers or their fur. There can be toxins in the water, such as chemicals that run off from agricultural fields where they're spraying pesticides, such as atrazine, which is affecting frogs. It's been shown to affect their reproductive systems and their development. They're called endocrine disruptors. So there's, again, a lot of possible effects on wildlife.
How does pollution in water sources affect humans?
Well, it depends on what it is, again, but there are chemicals in the water which over time could cause a person to develop cancer. There are toxins in the water that can make people sick in other ways besides cancer. Pathogens can get into the water, such as cholera, that is causes severe diarrhea, so that's a water pollutant. I guess, yeah, that's about it. Okay.
To clarify, is there any way that plastic in water can affect humans?
Well, yes. The plastic itself contains toxins, which the plastic doesn't break down completely. It can break into smaller pieces, and so the chemicals can leach into the water, and if someone consumes that, it can be bad for them. So, for example, there is a chemical called BPA that was used to make plastic products and is becoming phased out because it's been shown to be an endocrine disruptor.
What is water pollution like within Alabama, such as the Cahaba River?
The number one pollutant in the Cahaba River is sediment, which means particles of dirt basically that wash into the river. And that happens a lot when there's construction on the banks of the river and there's no natural trees or forests or vegetation to hold the soil in place, and it just washes into the river. So it changes the ecology of the river because it ends up with kind of a soft, silty bottom instead of a rocky bottom, and things that would normally inhabit a rocky bottom can't live if there's a lot of sediment in the water. But there's certainly a lot of plastic and trash. I mean, all you have to do is drive, on any of the roads that cross over the Cahaba, and when you look down, you can see a lot of debris down there. So that's a pollutant. And there's some pollutants from industry, and although the Cahaba River being our drinking water, we try to protect it. So there's things like mining, which would cause pollution, are going to be more outside of the city of Birmingham. There's a lot of rivers in Alabama that are affected by mining. Acid mine drainage is another water pollution issue. Heavy metals that can get into the water, that can affect human health as well.
What can we as individuals do to help prevent or fix water pollution?
I guess I would say as an individual, try to make sure that any plastic or debris that you are throwing away makes it into a proper facility that's going to end up in a landfill. It's better not to use plastic in the first place, so try to reduce the number of bags that you take in the store, reduce the number of bottled waters that you drink, use reusable water bottles or just drink from a glass. So trying to reduce your use of plastic to start with. And then as far as trying to prevent big picture things like pollution from agriculture or industry, as an individual, it's very difficult to do that, but the political process allows you to vote for people who can more effectively impact those kinds of processes and policies that are in place.
And will we ever reach a point where the effects of pollution are irreversible?
Well, certainly you could reach that point. I hope we don't ever get that far. I feel like there's more awareness of sustainability and protecting the environment than there was 50 years ago when the earth was seen more as unlimited resources. So hopefully people are going to be more aware to prevent the pollution in the first place. It's much better to prevent than to try to clean up. So trying to take the steps that you see people taking now towards sustainability and reducing the use of resources is going to help. But yeah, I mean, I think we could eventually destroy the planet if we didn't take these steps to intervene.
And just before we go, do you have any parting remarks or anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think it's interesting, this project that y'all are working on. It ties in with a lot of current events. The people that are working on cleaning up the plastic in the ocean have just recently sent out their prototype, which is that big, long device that's supposed to kind of scoop up the plastic. So there's some controversy on that, whether it's really going to be effective because of the size of the ocean. But it's better than nothing, and I think one of the points that was made is to try to prevent the pollution, the plastic from getting there in the first place would be really important. So try to reduce our use of plastic and recycling and all that. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. You're